pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everybody. I did, on the meeting packets that I sent out, I know a couple people have asked me for copies of the spending plan or the program of projects. It is with the in the meeting packet. So if you go on our website, you can pull those out, or a PDF of it, so you can manipulate it as much as you can.
You're not going to let us adjust it and send it back to you?
Well, that's why we have candy today. Item number 2, meeting minutes from August 15th.
Motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention.
Aye.
And you are,
I'm with Porter County
okay,
Highway Engineer.
Mike?
I'm
No.
Mike, and this is Martin.
Okay, Martin.
Yep.
We'll get you guys. Public comment? No public comment. Program of projects update. If everybody turns to the last page of the program of projects, just flip it over. I put everybody's 80% or thereabouts, their full funding amount in. So you can see in 24 we are just about we are almost, we are a little bit in the red, so I think we can take care of that with we'll see how things pan out. In 2025 we have the surplus, but in the other 3 years, 2026, we're 6.8 million in the red. And then just under $1 million in 27, and then in 28 we have 2 million in the green, so in the black. So the candy over there is the treat. The trick is I've got to do some reshuffling. If we're going to, I need to go through this exercise again, or Ann and I need to go through this exercise again to rebalance our spreadsheet. Like I said, I threw in 80% of what everybody asked for at the quarterlies. So there's funds in there for Kennedy Avenue right away. Anybody else who had PE or something in there, we funded that up to 80%. So, and that's how things shook out for all the years. So I've just got to do some rebalancing like I did last year at this time, or thereabouts. So that at least the construction funds are at 80%. I do want to let everybody know that starting with this next NOFA, we are not going to be funding design and right-of-way at full 80%. We're running numbers now, but it appears that this actually design right-of-way, or PE, right-of-way, and CE, when the projects are finished, there's always money left over. So we're losing money. Now, granted, it's not a lot of money. We're talking like $3,000 per project or something like that on each one, that there's usually left over, but we're losing, and granted, in this grand scheme of $25 million, it's not a lot, but once we allocate those funds to a project, we can't move those funds anywhere else. So we'll probably reduce that down to 70 or 75% for all three of those. I got to look at the numbers, but that's kind of where I'm looking at reducing design, PE, and CE, or construction engineering, right away, and design to 70 or 75%. So we'll think about that, and we'll probably discuss that in our TIP meeting, our NOFA meeting, actually. Any comments on the update?
So, Charles, in the detail report under multi-use for Hammond's project, the Market Greenway from Kennedy to Pond, it's 1941,900. I had made requests for funding.
What's that?
I had made requests for funding modifications back in July, and they're not, I don't know if that's a problem.
Do I have that in there?
The line item's there, but the request for update is not there.
This is the Marquette Trail,
Yeah, Market Greenway Trail,
Kennedy Decline,
yes.
and how much?
So I had asked to increase the federal amount, including CE, to $3,624,800. And the total cost of the project is $4,531,000.
$4,531,000.
Yeah.
Okay, I was looking at quarterlies,
Okay.
so I will.
But we made that request.
Yeah.
I don't know how to fix it.
Okay.
You had mentioned that it would require an admin modification. We had additional requests by the property owners to make certain improvements to the project, and so that's what the cost increase is related to.
Could that go in 2025?
I think it is I think it's in 20.
It's in 26.
It's in 26 now because the environmental report is being extended as a result of requests from property owners and from U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So we don't have it approved either document. So
Could that document be finished by?
by the end of this year, so it should be.
So could it go in
Should be
25?
close. It could, I don't know, could potentially go 25.
Okay. I'll look for the email.
I could give you a copy.
No, if you send it once.
Also under multi-use paths, the second to the last one, 23 of the 0656, which is the Market Greenway, on 150th, basically in Chicago. We had, our request had been for a federal match amount of $693,000, so it's a little bit more than what Mercy's award letter had suggested. So we're asking for a correction to that amount.
What's your,
693.
okay, so I have in there that the reason why it's reduced because in the NOFA, you said you were gonna pay for, Hammond was willing to pay for $207,000.
Okay.
So that's how that got reduced down.
Fair enough.
So. But, I mean,
No, that's.
as inflation, and inflation has taken another bump up. It seemed like it plateaued. And then I noticed after quarterlies that it took another bump up, so we'll see. So,
Thanks.
any other comments on the program projects?
Could I ask a question, Charles, about the NOPA funding only to 70 or 75%? Is that going to be the matching funds, or are you only going to allocate funds to, say, 70% of what we're asking? So that, and then we have the opportunity, I suppose, to come back if you have extra money. Is that
Well,
where you're
the
going?
big, what you probably missed when you walked in was that I'm noticing, at quarterly meetings, is that when a project is done,
Yeah, there's a
there's-
little money left on the table.
right, and we can't reallocate that.
Mhm. So you're not talking about the match being changed, you're talking about how much you're gonna allocate for,
We're only gonna cover 70 or 75% of the total funds.
For PE and right
For PE,
Right.
right away, and CE.
away.
Those are the three that, that always seem to have funds left over. Of course, CN gets adjusted at letting. So, but that always seems to level out. We do that, and then there's no way to figure that one out. But-
Is that across all funding categories?
That'll be across all funding categories, starting probably with the next NOFA. CE is always is always hourly. Construction inspection, that's always an hourly, so,
As the projects move, it's easy to keep an eye on your CE so that you stay under budget with the amount of time that your engineer is spending on site,
so,
especially as the project's winding down.
yeah,
You know, it's easy for me to say, I'll check that out, and send an email to the engineer so he's not putting a lot of hours toward the end of the project. So it's easy to keep your budget.
yeah. Like I said, and it's not a lot per project. I'm noticing probably on average less than $5,000 on every project for PE, right away, and CE. But, you know, if we have 15 projects we go through, on average, that's, 5,000 times 15, we're talking about a little bit under 100, about 100,000 that we're losing. And granted, in the scheme of 25 million, we're talking change, but again, we're losing money. So, and like, I haven't put together, run any numbers. I've just what I'm noticing at quarterly meetings. So. Any other questions or comments on the program of projects? The 2024 to 2028 tip and stip. This is where I'm losing my hair. Every time I think I've got it figured out, then I get a question and I have to go back and explain it to someone else. We had issues, the EPA gave us some oddball numbers for our air quality. Numbers that we realized when we saw them that there was no way we could meet those numbers for air quality. And there's 4 MPOs in Indiana that are going through this. So it's not just us. So the EPA is giving new numbers, but that's all done in Washington and it's got to be recorded in the Federal Register before we can get our 2050 plus approved and therefore get our TIP approved. So our TIP and our 2050 plus, our MTP, our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, are kind of in limbo. And we're told that it should all be resolved in the spring. Now, I don't know what spring means. Does it mean February? Does it mean June? I don't know. We're trying to narrow that down to see how we go. Federal Highway and NDOT have kind of advised us to have everything done and turned in to NDOT. So if there's a FEMAS request, we'll get the FEMAS request, get all your contracts into NDOT, get them approved, so that when our transportation plan and our TIP get approved, then things can just pick up and run at NDOT. So we're looking at different things like doing our public comment period simultaneously with the feds when they do theirs, so that we can save time there. We could save possibly 30 days there. We're looking at different, like I said, different ways we can speed this up. And one of the things that I think Brianne has told everybody in here is that you need to do get everything into her so that she can have it sitting on her desk, so that when the ball drops, we can start running. We don't know when that's going to happen, but instead of sitting around waiting until we get the go, we might as well have the car already fueled up and sitting on the starting line. So, like I said, it's frustrating because I get probably 2 questions a week from NDOT on, this can't be done. Yes, it can be done. We can't add funds here. We can't do this project here. Well, yes, it can. So basically, if you're doing an environmental project or something, if it's in our TIP and our TIP's been approved, our 22 to 26 TIP, and it's been approved, then if that amendment's been approved, then it can be, then they will look at it. And they keep saying, I keep getting comments that, well, your 24 to 28 TIP isn't approved, so we can't do anything. And my response is, did you look at our 22 to 26 TIP? Well, we don't know where to look, and it's, anyway. So it's talking with NDOT and getting them and making sure that projects can be moved or can be going forward. The date we have is July 25th. Anything that was in our TIP before July 25th of 2023 is official and can move forward. There's one project that I got to work on, and Federal Highway said they would work with us on it. So I got to get with Federal Highway and talk about that project with them. Any questions?
With the project that you're referencing, is that the Lake Station project?
No, that Lake Station project's good. For the most part, if anybody had any funds in 24 and some of 25, we put it in the TIP last year, immediately. So anything that's got, and we went through the TIP and a program of projects, and I've gone through, and like I said, I think there's only 1 or 2 projects. I know of one project, and Ann, you said you had 2 projects. Yeah. So there's 3 projects that so not one project, but 3 projects that I have issues with. I don't think the 2 projects that Ann had said, I don't think they're big mountains to climb. But I do have one project that, that I'm looking at right now. That is sizable, so. But like I said, if a project was awarded in the last NOFA and it had funds in 24 or 25, definitely 24, I put it in right away. So it got put in January or May or July. Those 3, there were 3 amendments there. So all 3 of those amendments, I made sure that they got in there. There might be a couple, but that's minor. So. Moving on to 5, other new business, quarterly meetings. We talked about reshuffling the projects as needed. I'm trying to bring a couple projects from 26 into 25. I think there's room in 25. So I've talked to a couple of the designers and a couple of the engineers about moving projects forward. I'd love to move a project into 24, but I'm not sure that's possible. It's just too short of a timeline. To get a project in 24, I think final tracings is at the end of December. That's actually final tracings is at Thanksgiving. It has to be sent down to central office, NDOT central office at the end of December. And I will talk to everybody about if a project has to move one way or the other before I do it. So just to make sure that you guys, no one is I'm not trying to blindside anybody. So I will talk to people before I officially make a move. Other new business, the extra funds that we were told we were going to get, that never appeared. I got an email on Friday. Those funds were actually 2023 funds, so they expired on September 30th. We did not get any of those funds. I don't know why. We were sent an email saying we could get up to 5.9 million, and then nothing happened. It's frustrating, but get my hopes up. It's like telling your kids you're going to get a nice new bike for Christmas, and Christmas morning comes and there's no bike there, or a dollhouse or something like that, and it's not there. That kind of goes in the mean category. What's that?
Looks like you're open for a Red Ryder meeting.
Yeah.
An expensive downhouse for 5.9 million.
It's a nice bike. That's a lot of toys.
Charles, the email that you sent out was just to confirm that we were getting internet, what's the status of that, did you send that
To
to find out about the company? Is that who you sent that email to?
Yeah, I sent an email out to Kathy McCall finding out if there was these funds, because there was a lot of talk about whether these funds would if we were getting the funds or how much we were getting, if they were gonna expire in September or if we were gonna be able to use them all in '24. And, yeah, NDOT got funds, but they didn't share it with the MPOs. And they expired on September 30th. So maybe that's why they didn't share it with the MPOs, because they were gonna expire. I mean, we would have had literally 6 weeks to put these on projects. And with the way our tip is right now, it's not like I could just open up and say, I'm gonna give this project $500,000 for right-of-way. I couldn't do that if they didn't have right-of-way to begin with. So, yeah. Anyway, and it looks like we have a surplus in '24 anyway, so.
Well, behind you it's snowing, so.
What's that?
Behind you it's snowing.
Oh, good. Merry
You
Christmas.
got that to look forward to.
Did you have to point that out?
Right.
Thanks.
So at least one good thing happened today.
The simple, no. Not when you're from Miami, it's never good.
When you're from Wyoming by way, or when you're from South Dakota by way of Wyoming, it's always a nice thing. Anything else that we want to talk about? Anybody? I know there's projects out there that we want to bundle. We're going to try to bundle, but we don't know how that's going to, how the funding is going to pan out. So I am going to work with people on trying to get you any projects that were tried to bundled, or get projects that were, if I can get funding earlier, we'll try to do that for like PE or something. In '24, maybe that's what we start, something with PE. I know there are projects that had PE in '26 or something like that, and maybe we start that earlier. There had been some questions to me. I'm trying to think of other things. There had been some questions to me about the NOFA meeting. I'm thinking November 8th or 9th. Candace, was that right? We were looking at the 9th, November 9th, for the NOFA meeting. I will get that out. Yes.
When do you expect the reshuffling of projects to be confirmed? Would that be at a T-ROC, or would that be earlier than that?
It'll be earlier than that,
When do you expect?
by the 9th. By the 9th.
November 9th?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna, this isn't my top priority, but it's like number 2. I got an admin mod that I gotta get in. And then I'm gonna sit down and look at the projects.
Is there anything you need from us on that?
I believe I have everything, and everything should be showing on here, with the exception of anything that anybody pointed out, and right now that was only, Dean was the only one that pointed anything out to me. So, look at this and make sure that your numbers are accurate in here. What you gave me on the quarterlies, that's where I took the numbers from. So if your quarterly is wrong, then it will reflect wrong in here. Or is incorrect, I should say, not wrong. If your quarterly is incorrect, then it's not, then it wouldn't be reflected correctly in here. And please, if by any means, if anything changes, or if anytime, feel free to call me, or send me an email. Send me 2 emails, send me 3. But I will work on getting the funds. As we've said in the past, construction is the most important. Funding construction at 80% is the most important. So, with PE and right-of-way, as well as construction inspection, I can give you some seed money, and then once you get the PO, we can always add money to the PO, even after all that's completed. So for instance, if you need $300,000 for right-of-way, I can give you, say, $100,000. You buy all your right-of-way with all your funds, we can come back and pay you on arrears. So that's one thing we can do that way. We don't need to give the city or the town or the county all the funds up front. We can always pay you in, say, April, when I usually have funds left over.
Well, that's the benefit of short funding, PE right away.
Yeah.
You have that money available to make up the difference.
See, and part of the reason for doing all that is some of that stuff for design and construction inspection, some of that's some hourly in there. So if you don't use all the funds, we have some left over. Right-of-way funds, you're putting out an estimate. We don't know how it's going to shake out. Maybe the appraisers, maybe the estimates they come in a little bit under than that. But like I said, once we give you money for it, we can't take it back. It just disappears. I can't unobligate funds for a project or a phase of a project. So that's kind of why we're looking at lessening the amount that we're going to fund.
You may even want to go lower, because I know we had, I think at the Marcella roundabout, we had planned for a total take, but the engineers were able to center that roundabout such that we didn't have to buy either a gas station or a restaurant. So our estimate of right-of-way was very high. We didn't have a lot of federal funds for it, so we didn't leave it behind. But if we had even 70% funding of that, we probably would have left $500,000 in that PO. So I agree, it's a lot easier to add it when it's needed.
Right.
Because even just a small design change that takes a total take down to a much smaller little piece of land is huge, and you just don't know.
Yeah, when I was a project manager at NDOT, I can tell you I had one project that the property owner was asking an exorbitant amount for a little sliver of land. It was in November, so I knew we were paying for Christmas presents because it was in the apparent right-of-way. And so I just went to the designer and said, do we really need this parcel? Or how can we lessen the amount?
Yeah.
And we came back and said, okay, fine. And we were able to cut out that parcel. So yeah, sometimes you can do things that when your back's up against the wall, because it was going to condemnation.
Yep.
And it was going to impact the construction funds. So we just pulled that parcel, and unfortunately that property owner got nothing.
That's kind of what happened to us. We were looking at buying the RVs at that intersection, and we met with the property owner. Turns out he owns 48 RVs across northern Indiana, and that is his busiest RVs he has. So we were thinking it was, like like a $2.5 million total take, but his revenue would have made it over 6 million. It is unbelievable how much business that Harvey's generates. So we found a way.
Yeah, yeah. And there's other parcels along 41, there's parcels along 30 that are in the $1 million range for an acre. So just to buy a sliver of land for an easement for utilities can be, Dean, I know you know how much your parcels cost up in Hammond area, and
We had to fund 148 takes on Chicago Street.
yeah. Steve's back there with a large amount of parcels on Broadway, temporary, so.
Full properties?
Some were full, they weren't all. They were full.
So. Um, That's all I have. Is there anything else on anybody else?
I will say, as far as the properties that we have moved on Kennedy, everything's coming in way, way higher than it did. I mean, 30-40% higher than we expected it to 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
So, yeah, and that's gonna happen, but like I said, it may be, and we'll have this conversation at the time, maybe where I give you enough to open up PO, a third or half the funds that you are requesting, and then we come back and I can always add money later on, even after you're done buying or you're done with the design. I can always come back and add funds later on.
Where do you park your unprogrammed money? Or does it just sit unprogrammed?
It sits unprogrammed. It's at the bottom of the sheet. You can see it's green. I generally like to have everything programmed out because I know we do have $350,000 annually we set aside for change orders. So I guess that's where I would park extra funds, would be in the change order categories. So yeah, and if we don't get that funds, and then I have to use those funds in April. So then I start looking for projects to put them on.
Buses.
I can put them on buses. So, yeah, I can put them on buses. I can put them in after May, after the first week of May. That's the only place I can put them is in transit. So, which may or may not be a bad thing. Usually not a bad thing, but depends on the amount of funds we have. So. Anything else? Okay, next would be item number 6.
Move to adjourn.
Our next meeting is February 20th, 2024,
9 a.m.
at 9 a.m., yes. Did I pull? Yep. It's 9 a.m.
What day again?
February 20th. That is the date. Do we have a second?
Second, second.
Oh,
Or you can second.
all those in favor?